The Empire's overconfidence. The Galactic Dominion was the most powerful empire in the known universe. Their warships had crushed 100 worlds. Their armies had enslaved countless species, and no civilization had ever stood against them. They believed they were unstoppable. Now their eyes were on a small blue planet called Earth. Admiral Vrex, the commander of the Dominion's fleet, stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Dread Inferno. Through the viewport, he could see Earth, spinning peacefully in the dark void of space. It looked fragile, unprotected. He smirked. "This will be over in an hour," Vrex said, folding his arms. His officers nodded in agreement. The Dominion had already scanned Earth's defenses. The humans had space stations, satellites, and a small fleet of outdated warships, but they were nothing compared to the Dominion's firepower. The Dominion fleet had hundreds of warships, each armed with plasma cannons and planet-killer missiles. Earth's weapons were primitive in comparison. Commander Zorak, Vrex's second-in-command, chuckled. "They don't even know we're here. Their technology is weak. They don't stand a chance." Vrex turned to his communications officer. "Send the standard message. Let them know their fate." The officer pressed a few buttons, and a deep robotic voice echoed across all human channels. "This is the Galactic Dominion. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." There was silence. Vrex waited, expecting a response. Panic, fear, desperate negotiations. But the humans didn't reply. "They're probably too afraid to answer," Zorak said. Vrex grinned. "Good. Then let's show them why resistance is useless." He turned to his weapons officer. "Fire the first wave. Target their defense systems. Make them understand who rules the galaxy." A moment later, bright streaks of plasma lit up the darkness as Dominion warships fired at Earth's orbital defenses. Several human satellites exploded instantly. A few space stations were ripped apart. The Dominion officers laughed as small debris floated in space. "Pathetic," Zorak muttered. "We have conquered true warriors before. This is nothing." But then, something strange happened. A Dominion warship, the Black Spear, suddenly stopped moving. Its lights flickered. The crew inside panicked as their controls became unresponsive. The ship's systems were shutting down. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the Black Spear," a technician shouted. Vrex frowned. "What do you mean, lost contact?" The officer's face turned pale. I don't know, sir. It's just gone. No signal, no response. It's like a second warship, the Iron Fang, went dark, then another. One by one, Dominion ships were vanishing from their systems. "This is impossible," Zorak growled. "Humans don't have this kind of power." Vrex clenched his fists. He refused to believe that a weak species like humanity could disable Dominion warships. There had to be a logical explanation. "Are they using a stealth weapon?" he demanded. The sensor officer scanned frantically. "No energy signatures detected, sir. No enemy ships approaching. We don't see anything." Vrex felt a cold chill run through him. "Then who is attacking us?" The bridge fell silent. The mighty Dominion fleet, the most feared force in the galaxy, was under attack by something unseen. For the first time in his life, Admiral Vrex felt something he had never known before. Fear. The first shock. Panic spread across the bridge of the Dread Inferno. Officers scrambled to restore communication with the lost warships, but every attempt failed. The Dominion fleet, once confident in its unstoppable power, now faced something beyond their understanding. Admiral Vrex's claws tightened around the control panel. His red eyes scanned the chaos around him. This was not how it was supposed to happen. Humanity was weak. The battle should have been over by now. "Find out what's happening," he barked. His sensor officer's fingers flew over the console. "Sir, I don't understand. The ships didn't explode. They didn't jump to hyperspace. They just disappeared from our systems." "Impossible," Commander Zorak growled. "Nothing just vanishes." A sudden alert flashed on the main screen. The Black Spear, one of their missing warships, was back. But something was wrong. The ship was drifting, its engines dead. No lights flickered from its windows. Vrex narrowed his eyes. Open a channel to the Black Spear. The communication officer pressed a few buttons. No response. Admiral, it's like no one is inside. Zorak scoffed. Then we'll force them to answer. He turned to the weapons officer. Lock onto their hull and send a shock pulse. That'll wake them up. Before the order could be carried out, a message blinked onto their screens. One simple sentence: leave now or be erased. The words were written in perfect Dominion language. The bridge went silent. No one spoke. No one moved. Vrex felt his heart pound in his chest. The humans should not have been able to send messages through Dominion systems. Their technology was primitive. It should have been impossible. Then, the Black Spear moved, not under its own power. It was being pulled toward Earth, as if by an invisible force. The crew watched in horror as the warship, one of the Dominion's most advanced, vanished into the planet's atmosphere without a trace. No explosion, no distress call, just gone. Zorak's voice was barely a whisper. What are we fighting? Vrex clenched his jaw. His instincts screamed at him to retreat, but his pride refused to accept that humans, could be behind this. No, this was a trick, and he would not be fooled. Prepare for a full-scale assault, he growled. If they won't surrender, we'll burn their world to the ground. But deep inside, for the first time in his long career, he wondered, had the Dominion made a mistake? The unseen threat. Admiral Vrex stood frozen, his claws gripping the armrests of his command chair. The Black Spear was gone, swallowed by the planet below. No explosion, no trace, just vanished. The bridge was eerily silent. Every officer, every soldier aboard the dread Inferno could feel it. Something was wrong. Zorak was the first to break the silence. His voice was tense, uncertain. Admiral, should we call for reinforcements? Vrex's red eyes flashed with anger. Reinforcements? Against humans. The very thought was an insult to the Dominion's power. No, he snapped. We end this now. Fire everything. The order sent a shockwave through the crew. Every warship in the fleet received the command, and within seconds, the sky above Earth was filled with burning plasma. The Dominion's most powerful weapons rained down on the planet, each strike capable of leveling entire cities. Vrex watched with grim satisfaction as explosions erupted across the surface. Fireballs rose into the sky. The Dominion's weapons had never failed before. Nothing could survive this kind of assault. And yet, Earth still stood. The fires cleared, revealing something impossible. The planet's surface remained untouched. The cities, the mountains, the oceans, everything was exactly the same. Zorak took a step back. That's not possible. Vrex's grip on the chair tightened. Sensor officer, what just happened? The technician's hands trembled as he scanned the readings. Sir, the weapons, they didn't hit. What? The officer's voice cracked. They just disappeared. Every blast, every missile. They never reached the ground. Vrex's blood ran cold. That was impossible. No civilization in the galaxy had technology strong enough to erase Dominion weapons mid-flight. Then, the screens on the bridge flickered. One by one, every display went black. The crew's consoles shut down. The entire warship, one of the most powerful in the fleet, was suddenly blind. And then, a new message appeared. This time, it wasn't in Dominion language. It was written in English. You were warned. Vrex's heart pounded in his chest. Get our systems back now, he roared. The technicians scrambled, pressing buttons, rewiring circuits, but nothing worked. Their weapons, their shields, their engines, everything had been hacked. And then the worst happened. One by one, the warships of the entire Dominion fleet began shutting down. The lights across the Armada flickered. Their thrusters sputtered. Their shields vanished. The Dominion's unstoppable fleet was now nothing more than floating scrap metal. Zorak's voice was barely a whisper. "They're toying with us." Vrex's hands trembled. He had never felt powerless before. The Dominion was supposed to be superior. Humans were supposed to be inferior. And yet, in this moment, they were the prey. And Earth was the hunter. The nightmare begins. A cold silence spread across the bridge of the dread inferno. Every Dominion officer felt it now. Fear. The unstoppable fleet of the Dominion was dead in space. No weapons, no shields, no engines. They were sitting ducks in the black void above Earth. Admiral Vrex gritted his teeth. His mind raced for an explanation. Some kind of advanced human weapon. No, this wasn't just firepower. This was control. The humans had hijacked their ships, silencing the most powerful armada in the galaxy without firing a single shot. Then, the main screen flickered. For the first time, they saw them. A shadowy fleet emerged from the darkness, hidden between Earth and the void. They hadn't been visible on any Dominion sensors before now. Human warships. But these weren't the primitive, outdated ships the Dominion expected. These were sleek, black vessels, moving without a sound, as if they were ghosts in space. A deep, synthetic voice echoed across the bridge, filling every Dominion warship at the same time. You were given a chance to leave. Vrex's claws dug into his armrest. Who is this? The voice remained calm, emotionless. You have made your choice. Now you will see what it means to fear. Before Vrex could respond, the human ships vanished. Not cloaked, not jumping away. They simply blinked out of existence. Zorak took a shaky step forward. Where did they go? No one had an answer. The Dominion sensors still weren't working. They were blind. Then the first ship was taken. A Dominion warship, one of their largest dreadnoughts, was there 1 second. And then, gone. Not a single shot had been fired. No explosion. No trace left behind. Then another, and another. One by one, Dominion ships vanished, as if they had never existed. White 8 A's HAPPNing. Vrex roared. Zorak's hands trembled. I don't know. We're not detecting any weapons, any ships, nothing. The voice returned. This is your last warning. Leave now. Vrex's pride refused to accept defeat. We do not surrender, he snarled. Silence. Then the voice spoke again. Then you will not leave. At that moment, the dread inferno itself shook violently. Lights flickered. A deep mechanical humming echoed through the walls. Admiral, a technician cried. As something is inside our systems, it's rewriting our code. On the main screen, new words appeared, sent directly from the unknown human force. Your weapons belong to us. A new horror dawned on Vrex. The humans weren't just disabling their fleet. They were taking control of it. And now the Dominion's greatest weapons were pointed at themselves. The turning point. Admiral Vrex's breathing was heavy. His claws dug into his chair as he watched the dread inferno's main screen. His fleet was no longer his. The warships that had once burned entire planets, that had enslaved civilizations, were now puppets of an unseen force. And then the horror deepened. A Dominion cruiser, the Bloodfang, turned on its own fleet. Its weapons powered up, glowing with deadly energy. But the crew inside had no control. Sir, a Dominion officer cried. The Bloodfang, it's targeting us. Vrex's heart pounded. Shut it down. Override its systems. We can't. The ship isn't responding. The first shot was fired. A plasma cannon from the Bloodfang struck a Dominion destroyer, tearing it apart in seconds. Hundreds of Dominion soldiers died instantly. Then, another warship fired. Then another. The Dominion fleet was now destroying itself. "This can't be happening," Zorak whispered in shock. Vrex slammed his fist on the console. "We are the Dominion. We do not fall to a lesser species." A new message flashed across every screen on every Dominion warship. "We warned you." Vrex's mind raced. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was an execution. The humans had never planned to fight them directly. They had waited, studied the Dominion, and found a way to make their own weapons turn against them. And now, the most feared armada in the galaxy was destroying itself under the command of an enemy that they could not even see. The bridge of the dread inferno shook violently. Sparks flew from the consoles. The Dominion's own hacked warships had locked onto them. "Sir," a technician screamed, "we're their next target." Vrex's blood ran cold. His own warships were about to obliterate him. "Call for retreat," Zorak shouted. "We need tow." The moment he said it, the comms officer's screen blinked red. A single word appeared: "Denied." Vrex's chest tightened. The humans weren't letting them run. They weren't just defeating the Dominion. They were making sure no one survived to tell the story. The final blow. The dread inferno shook violently as another Dominion warship, now under human control, turned its cannons toward them. Sparks rained down from the bridge ceiling. Consoles flickered with error messages, and alarms blared through the ship. Admiral Vrex gritted his teeth. This was impossible. The Dominion had never lost a war, never even faced a real threat. Yet here they were, trapped, hunted, and powerless. "Admiral," the comms officer cried, "we're being hailed." Vrex's eyes narrowed. By whom? The officer swallowed hard. "It's them." The main screen flickered. A new message appeared in perfect Dominion script. "This is your final chance. Surrender now or be erased." Silence filled the bridge. No one moved. Commander Zorak's voice was barely a whisper. We should surrender." Vrex turned sharply, eyes burning with rage. "We are the Dominion. We do not surrender to primitives." Zorak's throat tightened. "Sir, they have control of our ships. They shut down our weapons. They could have wiped us out immediately. But they're giving us a chance." Vrex's claws dug into the armrests of his command chair. His pride screamed at him to fight. But what was left to fight with? Outside, the battlefield was a graveyard of Dominion warships, either drifting lifelessly or tearing each other apart. The fleet was lost. His officers looked at him, waiting, hoping. The moment stretched, until Vrex finally made his choice. His voice was hoarse, barely more than a whisper. "Send the surrender signal." The comms officer's hands shook as he pressed the transmission key. A single word was sent out across the battlefield: "Surrender." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Dominion ships stopped firing. Their weapons powered down. The ships the humans had hijacked froze in place, no longer under attack orders. The human voice returned, calm and controlled. Wise choice. The tension on the bridge didn't ease. No one knew what the humans would do next. Would they let the Dominion flee? Would they execute the survivors? Then, the screens flickered one final time. "Go, tell them what happened here." And just like that, Dominion systems came back online. Engines hummed to life. Weapons reactivated. Their warships, once dead in space, were now fully operational again. Vrex stared in stunned silence. They let them go. The humans had crushed them, humiliated them, and they were letting them live. Zorak swallowed. "Sir, orders." Vrex's claws trembled. His voice was barely a whisper. "Get us out of here. The Empire's nightmare lies on." The battered remnants of the Dominion fleet limped away from Earth, their engines roaring as they jumped into hyperspace. On the dread inferno, Admiral Vrex sat motionless in his command chair. His claws dug into the metal, his eyes locked on the viewport as Earth shrank into the distance. They had spared him. They had spared his fleet. Why? Zorak's voice was hoarse. "Sir, what do we tell the High Council?" Vrex didn't answer. His mind was trapped in the horror of what had just happened. The unstoppable Dominion had been defeated without a single human shot fired. They had turned the Empire's own power against itself. And yet, they let them go. Not out of mercy. No, they wanted them to remember. To carry the message back to the Empire. A cold chill ran through him. This wasn't a victory for humanity. This was a warning. The bridge was silent as they approached Dominion space. Then, a transmission came through from the High Council. "Admiral Vrex, report. Have you secured the Terran homeworld?" Vrex's throat tightened. His voice was hollow when he spoke. "No." A pause. Then, a cold, irritated response. "Explain." Vrex closed his eyes, the words burning in his mind. He took a deep breath, then spoke the truth. "Earth is no one's to conquer." Silence filled the bridge. The High Council did not respond. But the message was sent. The Dominion, the greatest empire in the galaxy, had finally met something they feared. And from that date forward, across the Empire's vast territory, one name was whispered in terror, a name that would haunt them for generations. Humanity. The hunters of the void. The ones who should never be challenged.